Guys, welcome to today's show. So, I have a very good friend of mine, Andre Santos, on the show today. Now, Andre is a relationship coach and he's based in Portugal. I've invited him on because, as a relatively young guy, he's a master relationship coach, helping to save couples' relationships from all over the world. I mean, that's just a fantastic service that he's providing and just a great impact that he's having. And we'll be talking about that and spirituality a little bit later on. But first, I really want to give the viewers a chance to get some insight, and myself, an insight into Andre as a person, not the coach. So, Andre, I'll be firing some broad questions at you, if you're cool with that.
Sure.
Great. Andre, so welcome to the show. My first question is, what could you briefly share about your background that's molded you into the person that you are today?
Yeah, and thank you for having me, first of all. From my background, when I look back, I think like everything that I've ever done has been leading me to this path, and it's like hand of fate kind of thing. When we look back, we're connecting the dots, I don't know. But I've started having interest in like psychology from pretty much since I can remember. And it's really weird because I never really intended to go into the relationship kind of niche, but it's the thing that ended up evolving out of my interest in the psychology and what later developed into coaching, just because it was the thing that had the most impact in me personally.
And was there a particular event? I mean, what's your educational background? Was there a particular trigger that you can trace it back to? Because you mentioned fate, so it sounds like you're connecting the dots going backwards and seeing how it all lined up.
Yeah. Well, my education was already in psychology, so I already went in with this bug in me that needed feeding in the psychology subject. It was way before then. Like, I was a teenager and I had this observing habit. Like, I don't know, I was like an introverted kid, and the adults would talk to one another, and I would just observe, and I would try and understand like what was going on, because they're adult conversations, and as a kid it's a whole different world. And I wouldn't really play with the kids my age because I was so fascinated by like behavior, and I was looking at kids and how they behave. I was looking at adults and how they behave. So it was like, when I mentioned hand of fate, it's more like, I was put on earth for something pertaining to psychology. I didn't really understand what it was or what it would develop into. But it was like, no, bro, you're not even choosing. Like, you're already built for this.
Wow, that's really cool. That's cool. And when did you gonna make those active choices to really pursue it then? And how did you pursue it?
First time was when I was 14, and I found an NLP coach living in New Zealand who came to Portugal on holidays. And she was going to be here for another 2 days. So I emailed her. I set up like a meeting with her in a shopping mall. And I got there and I bombarded her with questions. And a beautiful friendship came out of that, by the way. So it wasn't as overbearing as it may come across. Then afterwards, I was even more fascinated. I started reading up, like I was devouring books on psychology and NLP and hypnosis and all this stuff. And as soon as I was able to pursue psychology as a curriculum, I did. Like, that was a no-brainer for me.
Mm-hmm. And then did you already have in mind what you would do after you got that qualification?
No, I knew that I would never be a psychologist because I did go to a psychologist when I was a teen, and I hated it. I was like, dude, that's not even psychology. That's just, you're just asking me stuff. And who cares how my week went? Let's talk deep stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I was really frustrated by that. So I was like, no, I'm never going to be a psychologist. but I do want to learn psychology because there's a lot of things that I know that I can use this information for, that I can transform people's lives. I didn't really know how I would do it or what that transformation would even look like, but I just knew that, you know, if I'm here, it's because I have to make an impact. Like my life is a waste of breath if I die never having lived.
That's cool. Was there risk involved in that? Did you feel any risk involved in that?
Sometimes life harm eventually, but I was well into my career then. So the most risk that I felt at the time was mostly just disapproval, you know, from parents, from friends, from teachers and mentors of all sorts that were like, you know, there's no future in that. You know, what's coaching? I don't even know that word. Like, are you going to teach baseball? Like, no. So yeah, it was just the parent concern mostly. It was, emotionally speaking, was a battle because, you know, teenagers make everything super dramatic. But no, yeah, there's a tendency there. But it wasn't until much later in life that I started actually facing, you know, life-threatening situations and decisions and occurrences that did shape me into being the coach that I am today.
Sure. Now you mentioned life-threatening situations there. Is that something that you are happy to share more about?
Sure. I will spare you the details because it was an autoimmune condition, which is Crohn's disease. You may or may not have heard of it, but it attacks the intestines, and part of the symptoms is like bleeding diarrhea, which is why I will share you the details.
Yeah.
It was 9 months in which my intestine was really inflamed and it was really fragile. And so the food that I was eating was tearing up my intestinal walls. I was getting torn up, like literally just the tissue was tearing. And because of that, you know, nutrients are absorbed in the intestines. So if you don't have intestines, you're not absorbing nutrients, which means that all the food you're putting in your mouth is not feeding you.
Right.
So I starved for 9 months. I was always able to absorb just enough not to die, but I lost 35 pounds and I wasn't exactly fat. I couldn't stand for longer than 10 minutes. I couldn't cook because you have to stand for that apparently. And I withered in that time. You know, my career died. Obviously, I couldn't work. I couldn't sleep because of the pain. You know, the weight, and this is ridiculous when I say it like this, but the weight of gravity on my belly was agonizing, like just extremely sharp pains just by doing nothing, just by gravity pulling it down. When I would lay down on my bed, the weight of the sheets would hurt me.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty fragile.
So it was ridiculous. Like my partner at the time, she couldn't, we're still together by the way, but just to clarify, but she wouldn't hug me because she was terrified. Because when she hugged me, like my back was all bones and my belly was like, you know, the pictures we see of the African kids who are starving, but their bellies are completely swollen. That was me. Completely skinny, but my belly was like big ball, like I had like a basketball,
Yeah.
like in my belly.
Yeah.
And the slightest touch was agonizing. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't do anything. The only thing that I could do was run to the bathroom. And when I say run, you know, take it with a grain of salt because it was more like, you know, stumble and grunt my way to the bathroom.
Sure, sure. Oh, wow. And I mean that's a huge event. Um,
Yeah.
and what was it like? So coming out of that, and it clearly looks like you have because you're fit and healthy. I know the last time that we met, you were like doing these muscle ups and
Front
levers,
lever. Yeah.
scaffolding, and yeah, putting you to shame. Like, Andy, your turn. Nah, I just carry. So
Sorry.
it's all good. Who's gonna know? uh, um, I mean, with that, and coming out of that, what was the impact of going through that physically that you had emotionally, mentally now? Did it change the way that you approached life and then some of the way that you made your decisions?
Yeah, that's that goes back to what we were talking about before. Like, how did I even choose relationships? It's like you would expect that going through this, I would have become a health coach.
Hmm.
But looking back, the thing that got me through it was not medication. It was, I mean, part of it was the physical nourishment, but more than that, like the deciding, the key factor was by far my relationship, because I was at a state that I would have given up. I was beyond fed up of being sick and dying and of having no hope of ever getting better. But she never did. Like, she was always, always, always there. She always believed in me. She worked two jobs to try and support us. She would come home exhausted, and she would have to clean after me. She would have to cook for me. She would have to help me move. So very simply, I would not have made it out without my relationship.
Hmm.
And that was like, that was the slap in the face, because I was given a second chance.
Hmm.
And I'm fully aware of that.
Hmm.
It
Sure.
was a miracle that I got better. And the worst thing that I can do with my second chance is waste it.
Hmm.
So I got to do something, and I got to do something that is meaningful. And there's nothing more meaningful to me. And I realize that now, than relationships. And that's why I do what I do.
That's so cool. And we'll
Thank you.
move on to that. But just that uh, pick up on that point you mentioned when you were like so dependent and fully reliant on your partner,
Like a baby.
like maybe you still will, just to be clear. Uh,
I'm not telling that.
how did that? How did you feel about that? Because was there sometimes I don't know. How did you feel about that? Having to be fully dependent and reliant like a baby.
Like a weight, like a dead weight. I looked around my life. I saw no hope of ever rebuilding. I got so depressed that I didn't even want my life anymore. It was like, no, I'm just a waste of space. And looking at the impact that I was having in her, because emotionally, going through an illness is like, it's really shit. Pardon the pun. Um, but for someone who is supporting someone through an illness, it's like, it's just as bad. But you're suffering through something that you don't have to. Like, you're volunteering to go through that pain for no reason. You're volunteering to put your life on hold for who knows how long, could have been forever. And she was doing that for me. So I felt like a massive burden, and I wanted to kill myself, not to be a burden for her.
Mm. And just one more on that, Andre. What would you say was the kind of one thing that changed the trajectory of that path that you're just describing then?
It was a bizarre event. On the night of July 2nd of 2017, that I woke up uh, looking down at myself. Like, I was about 3 inches from the ceiling, and I was just hovering above the bed, and I was looking at my body. I was looking at her. She was sleeping in a fetal position, which to me was like a massive wake up call. Like, shit, what am I doing to her? And it was pitch black in the room, but I could see fine, if that makes sense. And I don't know how long it was. To me, it felt like maybe 30 minutes that I was, just there floating, looking. But I'm aware that it was, something like 2 minutes because I was able to look at the clock. And when I woke up, the first thing that I did was look at the clock, and about 2 minutes had gone by. And when I was out of my body, my initial thought was, "Am I dead?" Normal thinking process, I would think in this case.
Sure.
And when I woke up, it was like, I don't actually want to die. There is so much that I can still do. There is so much that I owe. And that was like, to me, that was the word. Like, I owe too much. I cannot just die and leave my debt unpaid. So I got up out of bed and I ran in the corridor for the first time in 9 months. And in the following 3 weeks, I regained 30 pounds of muscle in 3 weeks. Within 2 months, I went to the hospital for routine exams because I still have to, because doctors don't believe that I'm healthy, because you're not supposed to heal from Crohn's. But 2 months afterwards, I went into the hospital for the exams, and they looked at me. They did all sorts of like really invasive tests, and by the end they say, "This is really weird. We don't know what's wrong." And I'm like, okay, something's wrong, but it seems you're healthy. What's wrong? Come on. So I've been going to the doctors like every 6 weeks now because they demand it. And every time that I go, I'm healed, I'm healed, I'm healed. I'm the miracle case. They wanted to not test me. They wanted to use me as a case study. And I said no. Yeah.
The reason?
Yeah, they would essentially say that the reason I got better was because of the medication that they were putting me through.
Okay.
And that's not true. I had been doing that medication. I was getting worse and worse and worse. The reason I got better was because I shifted spiritually. Like I healed my soul, and the rest just followed.
Okay.
I could never have seen that at the time. I didn't know that my soul was broken. But having that experience, being outside of myself and looking at myself, it puts things in perspective. And coming back from that was like, a chance of coming back from the dead. It was like a clean slate, a chance to start anew. So it's like, dude, make the most of it. I shifted completely, like internally. I was a different person. To this day, I still call it my rebirth. And every year on July 2nd, we celebrate my rebirth day.
Wow. And that was not too long ago then.
That was not too long ago. No.
The anniversary.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations, Andre. That's incredible. So then on to then your, I guess, status as a master relationship coach.
Yeah.
Without going into the details of the actual coaching itself, people can find out about you elsewhere. Like, what's the vision for that, and how does, if it does, tie into the spirituality aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, my experience with my health was my body will heal once my soul heals. The same thing happens with relationships, and the same thing did happen with my relationship. The relationship will heal once soul heals, because it's the core foundation of everything that you have in life. Your wealth is a manifestation of what's going on in your soul. Your depression or your anxiety is a manifestation of what's going on in soul. Your relationships are a manifestation of what's going on in soul. Your physical health is a manifestation of what's going on in soul. See a pattern here? It's like you cannot really build anything without a solid foundation. and our life, it expands like 360 degrees. It's like a sphere. It's like we're expanding outwards. So the foundation is, what is at the core? What is it expanding outwards from? That's soul. We seek expansion. We're always searching for expansion, but we forget to go back into the core and we heal that. The other component, because ultimately it comes down to these two, it's one, heal you, and the other is understand him or her, understand your partner. Because if you don't know what their soul is like, if you don't understand their soul, then you're not really building a relationship. You can't connect. You can't really develop anything meaningful if you don't understand the person you're connecting to.
Okay. So what I'm hearing, and I haven't been a part of your program, so I don't know the background and details, is that it's almost like delving into the root of it first, as opposed to dealing with, say, something more surface level like communication skills and how to interact at that level.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, and obviously we do communication stuff as well, because you have to know how to do that. But we always go for the deepest, the core of everything. And if you approach healing a relationship just based off of using different words, learning how to communicate, then it's very surface level. And what's going to happen is your partner is going to say something that is going to trigger emotions in you. In that moment, you're going to forget the right way of saying things. You're going to fly off the handle and you're going to blow up the relationship. Okay, there is a wound there in you, and that wound was poked and it hurt and you reacted. Knowing how to communicate will mean squat if you keep reacting to your wounds, because you simply won't follow it.
Yeah.
So you heal you first. You heal the foundation of the relationship, and the foundation is you. Yeah. You understand them. And if you understand them, automatically you're able to communicate at the deepest level. Because if you are all about potatoes and I'm talking to you about carrots, it doesn't connect. It's like, that's nice. But if I say, oh yeah, but what about potatoes? Like, yes, he gets me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously, dumb example.
yeah. I'll try that with Lisa later. What about carrots? So it's incredible how you've taken something that from your own experience, the seeing yourself outside of yourself, and then develop that into a system that you can use within a coaching program. So
we actually teach that now.
Somehow.
Sorry?
Almost replicating that somehow.
Yeah, and we literally teach that now. I teach my clients how to get out of their own body, to be able to assess the situation, to assess the relationship, to assess the dynamics for what they really are. Not what you perceive them to be, because that's what happens when you're looking through your own eyes. You're filtering through your own perspective. So I teach my clients now to do like what I did accidentally at the time, but I teach them now to get out, to look at things objectively, and okay, without filters, this is what's going on. I haven't been in the right as I thought I was. There has been a little bit of ego there, and I'm able to see that this behavior that my partner's been doing isn't just because he or she is obtuse and stubborn and whatever. It's because they're hurt, because they're feeling X, Y, Z. That makes all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I really resonate with that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Sure.
Okay. What do you love about yourself?
I'm gonna sound so arrogant, but my answer to that is, what don't I?
What a great answer. Keep going.
I've I've hated myself for a number of years. I've hated my life for a number of years. As a result, I hated people around me for some reason, and I couldn't really, put my finger on it. There was something that wasn't right, and I thought it was always someone else. And after much introspection and a bizarre out-of-body experience, I realized that that was all me. I was hating myself all that time. I was projecting that hate, that lack of tolerance, that lack of acceptance onto other people. So going through the transformation of having a second chance at life, of having the opportunity to heal, of going through massive meditations, like on cliff sides and like really cool scenarios, like fit for a movie. One of the things that I realized was that I don't need to love myself. And I know that's kind of a bizarre answer for this, but I don't need to love myself. All I need is to accept myself. And with that, love will come.
I've got to ask then, what's the difference?
Well, when you say, oh yeah, but you need to love yourself, it's almost like you have to convince yourself that you're good, that you are worthy, that you are, it's almost like you have to give your own motivational speeches. Look at the mirror and go, you are beautiful, you are amazing, you are unstoppable, you are, like, all that stuff. And obviously that's a cool thing to do and all, but self-acceptance is just so much more powerful, because all it is saying to yourself, I'm really distracted with my timetables. I really suck at keeping a tidy schedule, and I'm okay with that. In the moment, like when that happens, it's like you stop beating yourself up, you default to neutral, and neutral is happy, neutral is love. You don't have to force love. You have to remove the clutter, you have to remove the lack of tolerance, you have to remove the self-loathing, and automatically love will come.
Sure. Got it. So it's like the complete absence of judgment, right?
Yeah.
It's that inner critic, that voice.
Yeah. Words like I have to, I must, I should, or he or she should, these kinds of words, we don't even notice, but they rule your life. They are expectations. And if you have expectations, you're also going to have disappointments. And if you have disappointments, you're always going to be a failure. So if you let go of that, and I do know that this is easier said than done, but if you do let go of that, then automatically you are free. You are, you're able to float in the wind. You become like water, using that Bruce Lee analogy of, you put, I'm trying to quote him and I'm trying not to mess it up. If you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup, something like that. So it's like you adapt, you become fluid. You're not some rigid structure, because anything, no matter how hard it is, it can be broken. Water never can.
That's really good.
So if you remove all the musts, the haves, the shoulds, and you simply are, and you're okay with everything, and you look at something that you would normally not be okay with, and you state it, like, I'm okay with that. And it's a very simple, easy thing to do. Like, I'm broke and I'm okay with that. It's like, I'm not okay with that, but yeah, just try saying it, try accepting it, and then you're able to move past it.
Yeah. And then moving past then frees up, I guess, energy to look at the options and the solutions rather than focusing on the issue.
Exactly, because, there's a sentence, what you resist will persist. What that means is that, if you have an obstacle, like let's say you have a chair in your way. If you want to move the chair out of the way, you first have to admit it's there. Like, it's not rocket science, but emotionally we get so attached to wanting to reject that there is a problem. We try and deny it. We try and make the problem go away by not looking at it. And then we stumble our toes and we're surprised that it hurts. It's like, yeah, there was a chair there, dude. I mean, open your eyes.
Mm. That's good. It's good stuff, Andre. And this is, again, this is one of those things where if you're coaching this stuff, you clearly must be living it out, you know, because that integrity part is so key. Because with something as sensitive, as powerful as this, the clients that you have are going to notice if their coach is not congruent, you know, not walking the talk, as it were.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
constant journey for you as well, still, like.
Every day. It's not a done deal. It's not like, you know, you buy a package at the store and then you open it up, you dress up and like done. It's it's the constant work of evolution, and it's, you know, water is fluid. You know, going back to the water analogy, water is fluid. If water sits still for too long, it will start accumulating bacteria and germs and molds, and all sorts of like really nasty stuff is going to develop. You drink that water, you're going to die.
Mm.
If you keep water moving, then it doesn't matter what's happening really, because it will always be healthy. It will always be clean enough that it's able to adapt to anything. So we have this thing of, you know, you have to grow, you have to become better every day. I don't really like that wording, because like if you have to be better, then it's like you're not good enough now. It's just, you know, you have to adapt. You are perfect already for today, for the things you have today. Tomorrow you will need to be a different person, and that's okay.
Hmm. So is this like you're exactly where you need to be right now type of thinking?
Kind of, yeah. You have to be acceptant that where you are right now is a result of the state that you've been cultivating within yourself. The state in itself is fluid. It is always in motion. So if you try and hold on to it, you will create tension. Kind of like if you, like, let's say your posture. Uh, the best posture is always the next one. We have this thing, like you have to have a very straight posture. Like, no, you are able to move around freely, and you should, because if you stay with one posture for too long, certain muscles are going to start cramping. It's going to create a lot of tension. It's going to start grinding your bones, and that's what's going to cause the discomfort. That's what's going to cause the pain. The best posture is always the next one. Keep moving, keep being fluid, keep adapting. If you're creating tension in one spot, move, and that's okay. You are free to be free.
It's good. It's good. It's great, Andre. So before I move on to my last question, let me just shift my posture.
I just did the same.
So, last question here before we leave, and I just really want to thank you for your time, is how are you, Andre, intending to increase your impact going forward?
This is a dream and a pet project, and there is just so much that I'm planning to do, a lot of it that we haven't announced anywhere. But the vision that I have is an army of coaches working under the Awesome You banner. Awesome You is my company, by the way. So creating hundreds, thousands of coaching programs in all sorts of niches for all sorts of people, for all sorts of transformations that people need all over the world, open to anyone. And with that, give people the education, give people the transformation tools that we're lacking, you know, as a society, as a culture, that aren't being taught in our schools. We're not taught how to be healthy. We're not taught how to be in a relationship. We're not taught how to be happy. You know, you're taught to study hard, stay in school, and not do drugs.
Okay, it's good. Thank you, Andre. And if for the people watching or listening, if they wanted to find out more, how could they do that?
They can do that through my Awesome You page, and that's you as in the letter, or through my Facebook group, which is the Relationship Academy.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. And this is why I really enjoy doing this, because there's so much behind the person, and to understand how the events in your life have really molded you, have really shaped you to create that vision. And it's not as you said, it's not a one and done thing. It's evolution. It's a continuous journey. But what it really does show is that it doesn't matter what kind of adversity we face, even something as serious as life-threatening, there's always a way out.
Yeah.
And what happened in the past does not have to have any bearing on what you choose to do going forward as well. So thank you, Andre, for making the impact. Thank you for coming on and just being vulnerable and opening up to share a little bit more about you.
Happy to be here.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.